Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Save my baby, a single mother pleads, but a millionaire's gaze changes everything. In the immaculate corridors of the private hospital St. Joseph Memorial, everything exuded cleanliness, control, and discretion. Silence reigned, broken only by the discreet clicking of heels on the tiles or the polite murmur of the nursing staff. But that day, a cry split the air like lightning in a blue sky. "Please! I beg you, save my baby!" The voice was hoarse, choked with urgency and fear. All eyes turned toward the entrance to the pediatric cardiology ward. A young woman had just collapsed to the floor, on her knees, holding a bloodless little boy in her arms, his eyes half closed, his breathing rapid and irregular. Naomi Lefebvre, 26 years old, her hair a mess, her jacket too big, her hands shaking. She looked like she was on the verge of total collapse, but it was pure maternal strength that kept her going. Her son, Elijah, 2 years old, hardly moved anymore. He looked like a sick angel, a fragile little thing between life and death. She clutched an old, dog-eared medical chart that read in red letters: Tetralogy of Fallot, urgent intervention recommended. "My son, he needs surgery right away. He won't last until tomorrow." At reception, a nurse looked up, visibly embarrassed. She was already familiar with the file. "Ms. Lefebvre. I'm sorry, but without a guarantee of payment, the procedure cannot be scheduled. These are the rules of the establishment. I sold everything I had," cried Naomi, tears flowing freely down her hollow cheeks, "my car, my furniture, even my mother's wedding ring. But I'm still $12,000 short. I'm begging you, look at him, he can't even breathe." The queue froze. A well-dressed woman looked away. A man in a suit grimaced uncomfortably. An elderly woman murmured a prayer. But no one moved. Naomi, exhausted, placed her forehead against Elijah's burning forehead. She whispered, "Hold on, sweetheart. Mom is here." And that's when the elevator opened au fondue hall. A man came out, flanked by 2 assistants. He walked straight, determined, without a word. A man with broad shoulders, hard features, dressed in a black suit cut with almost military precision. His name was Jean-Baptiste Langston. CEO of the group Langston Enterprises, a real estate and security technology magnate, he was worth several billion. He was said to be ruthless. The newspapers had nicknamed him the Stone Man. He never made donations. Never took public action. Nothing that paid off. He came that day for a routine medical checkup. But as he walked forward, his eyes fell upon the scene, a woman on her knees, weeping, a dying child in her arms. He slows down. His assistants continued to speak to him. "Your appointment is with Dr. Chamberlain, on the 5th floor, Mr. Langston. We're already 5 minutes late." But John the Baptist couldn't hear anything anymore. He stared at Elijah's face. The boy's glassy eyes, so similar to the ones he had seen years earlier. Eyes that asked for help. That begged. Des souvenirs refirent surface. A hospital. Another scream. Another mother. His ex-wife, collapsed in a sterile room. And the little one Mathis, 3 years old, taken too quickly by a sudden heart attack. Langston felt his throat tighten. He hadn't cried since that night. He slowly approached Naomi, who looked at him suspiciously. "What's the problem?" he asked in a deep, almost abrupt voice. Naomi, surprised by his presence, answered hesitantly. "My son, he's dying. He needs to be operated on today. But I don't have the money. I've tried everything. He's only 2 years old." The man turned to the nurse. "Give me the file." She obeyed, her hands trembling. He read silently, frowned. Then, without looking up, "Get him admitted immediately. Prepare the operating room. I'll cover all costs." A murmur ran through the hall. Mr. Langston, wait, you don't have to. I said, do it. Now. He cut in a tone that brooked no reply. Naomi, distraught, looked at him, unable to speak. Then, suddenly, she burst into tears, almost falling to the ground. She squeezed Elijah's hand tightly. Why would you do this for us? Jean-Baptiste stared at the little boy, then closed his eyes for a moment. Because I've already lost one son. And I refuse to stand by and watch another one die. Then he turned on his heel, leaving behind an emotional silence, while the nurses quickly took care of Elijah. 2 months later. Winter had receded, and with it, the darkest shadows that had weighed on Naomi. That day, she left the hospital St. Joseph Memorial with his son in his arms, alive, smiling, breathing. It was almost unreal. The sun touched Elijah's now rosy cheeks as he reached out to the pigeons. He was laughing. A pure, light laugh, a laugh she thought she'd never hear again. She had written 3 letters. One after surgery. One after her first night without a heart alarm. And one last, after Elijah ran into their tiny living room for the first time. Jean-Baptiste Langston. To the man who changed everything. But no answer. Not even an acknowledgement of receipt. She could have been hurt. But she wasn't. For she understood, some gestures weren't repaid with gratitude, but with silence. She honored hers with the silent gratitude of everyday life, a kiss on Ellie's forehead, a drawing tacked to the wall, a shared meal. Until the day when a black sedan stopped in front of his social housing building in the Bronx. A suited driver got out, looking as solemn as the occasion. Mrs. Lefevre? This is for you. He handed her an ivory envelope, edged with gold. She opened it, her fingers trembling. Official invitation, Langston Children of the Heart Foundation Gala. Location, Le Bellamy Hotel, Manhattan. Evening dress required. Personal guest of Mr. Jean-Baptiste Langston. Naomi read the text 3 times. It wasn't a dream. It was real. The evening of the gala. Manhattan shone brightly. The skyscrapers seemed to be in dialogue with the stars. At the foot of the Hotel Le Bellamy, a line of limousines dropped off New York's elite. Actors, renowned doctors, investors, politicians. People far richer than she would ever be. Naomi stepped out of a modest taxi. She was wearing a simple, midnight blue dress, borrowed from a neighbor. She had braided her hair herself, applied delicate makeup, a touch of pink on her cheeks. Around her neck, the little wooden heart carved by Elia, hanging from a ribbon. She entered the hall. It was another world. White marble columns, immense chandeliers like suspended suns, silent waiters in white gloves, a string orchestra playing Debussy. She felt tiny, out of place, almost transparent. Gazes slid over her like a shadow. She looked for a discreet corner to sit down. No one greeted her. No one recognized her. Until the lights dim. And that Jean-Baptiste Langston goes on stage. He was still as imposing as ever, but that evening, something had changed. His posture was less stiff. His gaze more human. He approached the microphone. A respectful silence fell. 2 months ago, I saw a child who reminded me of what I had lost. And a mother who fought with every fiber of her being to save him. That night, in a hospital, I saw the pain again. But I also saw something I had lost, hope. A murmur ran through the room. Langston continued, his voice trembling slightly. That night, I realized that it's not enough to survive. You have to give back. So I created this foundation. So that other children like him have a chance. And so that other mothers no longer have to fight alone. He paused, then slowly turned his head. His gaze landed on her. A spotlight flooded him with light. Naomi froze. All eyes turned. Naomi Lefevre. A woman you don't know. But who, unwittingly, saved a heart I thought was dead. Mine. He stepped aside. Tonight, I am honored to announce that Naomi has become the Langston Foundation's National Emergency Relief Program Manager. Because she knows fear, pain, but also dignity and love. And that's all that matters. Applause erupted. First shy, then frank, then nourished. Naomi stood up, trembling, in tears. She stepped onto the stage. Her heels slid lightly on the carpet. She stopped in front of him. He looked at her respectfully. She approached the microphone. Thank you, not for the money, not for the position, but for something much more precious. She turned to the room, her voice soft but firm. Thank you for seeing in my son a being worthy of being saved. And in me, a mother capable of loving beyond fear. The audience rose to its feet. A standing ovation. And at the back of the room, a photographer captured a moment frozen in time, the one where a stone magnate and a mother of flesh looked at each other, and understood that an act of compassion had changed two lives forever. 5 years had passed since that memorable night at the Bellamy's Gala. And in 5 years, the Langston Foundation for Children of the Heart had gone from a promise to a real national movement. Of the mobile clinics crisscrossed the roads of the United States, from Detroit to New Orleans, from Phoenix to Atlanta. They were recognizable by their bright design, soft colors, and their slogan written in simple letters. One beat. One life. One chance. There were some over 25 now, parked every week in forgotten neighborhoods, abandoned rural areas or overcrowded cities. Each truck carried state-of-the-art equipment, a dedicated team, and above all, of hope. Naomi Lefevre had become one heart pounding. Directing the program from her small office in Brooklyn, she spent her days between mobile clinics, community meetings, and calls from mothers in distress. But what she loved most was the field. Being there. Seeing children smile after a reassuring exam. Comforting a woman trembling with anxiety. Taking a child in her arms and whispering, "You are important. You are strong. You will get through this." And always, at his side, there was Elijah, became a lively, cheerful little boy, always with a box of felt-tip pens in his hand. Wherever he went, he left a trace, red hearts drawn on the walls, on notebooks, on the steamy windows of clinics. For him, every heart was a silent tribute to the man who had believed in him. One day, he had even said, "Mom, if I ever become a doctor, I'll cure all the sad dads. Like Mr. Langston." Naomi had smiled, tears in her eyes. One autumn day, the national network WNB came to make a report on the foundation. The presenter, Amelia Green, walked between the tents, impressed by the crowd of families who had come to consult. She entered the main clinic of Brooklyn, the one inaugurated the previous year, a bright building built on a former disused parking lot. The walls were decorated with colorful frescoes drawn by the neighborhood children. And right at the entrance, in gold letters on varnished oak, one could read, "To Elia and Naomi Lefevre, for having awakened the heart of an empire." Amelia placed a hand on the plaque, moved. Then she went upstairs to interview Jean-Baptiste Langston in person, who had exceptionally agreed to come out of his secrecy to talk about the foundation. The man had changed. His gaze was still piercing, but now inhabited by a new sweetness. He hadn't spoken in public since the gala. But that day, he took the microphone, standing by a window overlooking a courtyard full of children playing jump rope. "Mr. Langston, hundreds of families have been helped through your foundation. Clinics have opened all over the country. Children are alive today because of you. Why did you change everything?" He looked at the reporter, then at the camera. His gaze wandered for a moment, somewhere else. And he answered, in a calm and serious voice. "Because one day, a mother knelt in a hospital to save her child. And in that little boy's eyes, I saw my own. That moment woke me up. A mother taught me that a simple look can be enough to rekindle the humanity within us." He paused, then added, almost in a low voice, "I thought I lost my heart that day, but she gave me one back." That evening, Naomi sat in her modest but warm living room, watching the report with Elijah asleep against her. She stroked his curly hair, her heart filled with silent gratitude. And as the images flashed across the screen, clinics, healed children, relieved mothers, she realized that what she had experienced was not an isolated miracle. It was a chain of kindness, born from a cry, a look, a gesture. One day, Elijah would be old enough to understand the magnitude of all this. But that night, he slept peacefully in the arms of the woman who changed an empire with her love.